it's brand building. That's pretty much
brand building, and it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's awareness, because believe it or not, there's about a 99.5% awareness of Honda.
Sure.
So it's much more about, if they have a great experience at the Honda Civic Tour, are they going to be more apt to consider a purchase of a Honda at some point in the future?
Okay.
And it's a hard measurement, but we do a lot of exit polling, and the research that we've done over the years that's independently commissioned, we don't actually do it ourselves, but the research company that, who has been doing this for a number of years can see very clearly, is the person who's gone to the show more apt to, think Honda is cool, like their cars, think it's a brand for them. Did it resonate? Did they have a great time at the event? We measure things like that because ultimately that's what is going to change their mind. And, did they notice Honda as part of this experience?
Mm-hmm.
And did Honda get credit for it? So all of those kinds of things are measured usually in, sometime 4 to 6 weeks after the event. So if we do 30 shows, we might measure probably 15 of them, and then take those measurements and, just whatever sample size that is, a few hundred people in the end create the sample size, and they've come from all these different shows, and we can show the different impact in different markets, and then the amalgamated impact of what that did across the whole tour. And most people, fans of this believe that, Honda Civic Tour, like Honda makes money from the tickets, or, this is an actual touring show, when it's really designed more as a youth marketing ad campaign more than anything else. But it does walk and talk and quack like like a music tour.
Yeah. Well, since you just explained all this to me, but does Honda? Do you work with Honda to pick the bands, or is it your company that picks the bands? Just so I'm clear.
Honda ultimately picks the bands.
Okay.
We'll give them kind of a menu, and they select off the menu. We'll pre-qualify the artists, and usually we can narrow it down to about half a dozen acts, and we might recommend someone if they ask us, but really we let it be their decision. And
okay.
I think it's a pretty mass brand. You would say, the premium, technically a premium or luxury brand, their premium luxury brand would be Acura.
Right.
And, Toyotas would be Lexus, and Nissans would be Infiniti, or, BMW would be the premium brand of, or Mercedes or premium brand. Audi is VW's premium brand, et cetera. So they're pretty much a mass market manufacturer. They, like, for example, the Honda Civic, just to give you a comparison, there might be 175,000 Acuras sold in America. There are about 350,000 Civics sold in America.
I looked that up.
A year.
I actually looked that up. That was 2017, right? And that was a peak year?
Yeah, I'm kind of, passenger cars in general are dropping dramatically.
Yeah, SUVs
People are gravitating much more to SUVs, and a lot of manufacturers have even dropped a lot of the passenger cars.
But you know that Honda is working on an electric Civic, or it looks like a Civic. I don't know what they're going to call it yet, but it should be out in a couple years, I think. That to me is cutting edge. That they're to me the Apple of cars.
Well, they have had a lot of firsts in technology. They had the first hybrid. They actually did have the first electric car. They had the first hydrogen car. But they don't always get the credit. Other people, to their credit, other car companies have outmarketed Honda.
Right.
Especially in the hybrid category, which is, frustrating, but not really my area.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about where these concerts take place. I know that you do shows at the Forum in Inglewood. That's where the Lakers used to play. And also Honda Center in Anaheim. That's where the hockey team, the Ducks, play. So both of those, let's see, the Forum holds about 10,000, maybe 10.5 thousand, and Honda Center 11.8 thousand. And you do well. You fill up these places, is the data I'm looking
at. Usually we do pretty well. We have, it's varied. The most of these tours throughout the 18 years we've done it have either been in the amphitheaters, like in San Diego. I don't know what it's called now, but the one in Chula Vista. Yeah. I forget the names because the sponsors change and there's so many sponsors. It's
right.
Actually, when we started doing this, there were very few. Now, there are a lot of differences, in the last 18 years, and one of the main ones is how many more brands have gotten into the music space. We were what I would consider extremely early in this, and we got Honda into music festivals about 10 years ago, and we were even early on that. And now, the number of brands that are involved in the music sponsorship world is intense. Live Nation alone does something like I think $350 or $400 million of sponsorship a year in the U.S. And then supposedly, according to IEG, which is another source, music sponsorship in America, or I don't know if it's America or globally, but it's like a 1.6 billion industry annually. So there's a lot of money being put into this space. When I started doing it, most of the money was going into sports, and music was kind of nascent still.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I worked on music sponsorships before I started doing this, so this was not my entry to music sponsorship in 2001.
Right. In fact, I want to get into some of your earlier history in a few minutes here, but continuing on this theme of the Honda Civic Tour, tell us about how the headline acts get to design their own Honda Civic and then give it away as a prize.
Okay, so again, going back to 2001, I think the impetus for this whole thing came to me from a couple different places. I would say that it was a sort of a mixture. If you remember the Absolute vodka campaign, I thought that was an amazing campaign because they took bottles of vodka and really turned them into art and pop culture. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of marveled at a brand that could sell a coffee table book of their, they used to do a lot of print advertising, and you'd kind of wait and get excited, at least I did, of who's doing the Absolute bottle in this magazine and what artist is doing it. And so in that same theme, you had the Fast and Furious series coming out, and at the time the Honda Civic was a car that was highly customized, and also the youth generation at that time, was sort of about personalization and about taking things and making it about them. Mm-hmm. And so taking that mixture of elements, we said, well, why don't we have the artist custom design a Honda Civic, and we'll take the car on tour with the band, and fans can actually win the band's car. And, you know, if this continues, I mean, I was sort of forward thinking at the time, not really knowing if it would continue or not. But, you know, you throw something at the wall and you hope it sticks. And I thought, well, if it goes, imagine how many cars we'll have one day. And, you know, it might be interesting to have one band look at a car design and then say, oh, I can up that. And actually that started to happen, where the bands would want to see who did it before, and then they want to look at their car, and they want to do a better job than they do. And so, and lots of fans have won these cars, and I've actually literally seen one driving on the road. So that was kind of a moment.
Well, to me, that's one of the most brilliant marketing ideas I've ever heard. Seriously. So the artist, are there limitations on the design, or do they get to actually come up with the craziest ideas possible?
I think in the early days of this, we did a lot more with the cars. You know, we did, like, I'm thinking of 2003 in particular, because we had co-headliners with Newfound Glory and Good Charlotte, and they were definitely in a competition with one another, not knowing what the other artist was doing. So we're talking to both of them, and, you know, well, one's like, well, I want to put video games in my car. Well, the other one's like, you know, at that time, people were still very into putting aftermarket stereos in their cars.
Yeah.
And that was kind of before a lot of the manufacturers upgraded the stock sound systems that you could get in a car when you buy it. And so we had a partnership with Alpine Electronics, and they actually did a lot of the manufacturing of the original equipment for Hondas anyway. So this was cool for them, because they wanted to do promotions with Honda, because Honda was one of their biggest clients as a equipment manufacturer. And then here they were getting promotion for their aftermarket stereos. So we put these crazy systems in these cars, and you know, the bands were playing video games in the cars at, you know, some of the photo shoots and things like this. And thinking back to Incubus's first car in 2002, that was super cool too, because there was a paint used on that car. Actually, Brandon is an artist also. I don't know, Brandon Boyd, the singer, and he's a phenomenal artist. And he had a tattoo of a fish on his arm that he had drawn and someone had tattooed on him, and then he wanted that to be on the car. So we basically laid the fish across the car, and the paint they used changed colors. So depending upon what direction you were looking at the car, it could be green, or it could be orange, or it could be sort of a purple, and it was very challenging to photograph and to get those colors out. But when you saw it in person, it was it was pretty amazing paint job. And of course, that was another thing very early on. I had to find somebody who was really a renowned painter. So I did. I found this guy, Pete Santini, who's down in Orange County, and he's painted every one of these cars from day one.